Hi everyone, this is Cecil again, and on today's Yellowstone podcast, I'm going to be talking about what I believe to be the 10 most outstanding sights to see at the Old Faithful area. Now, when I talk about the Old Faithful area, what I'm actually referring to is the Upper Geyser Basin. There are three main geyser basins in this part of Yellowstone: the Lower Geyser Basin, the Midway Geyser Basin, and then the Upper Geyser Basin, which of course is best known for Old Faithful Geyser. You may know by now that Yellowstone has almost half of the world's active geysers. And in this small area here, this area of approximately 1 square mile or about 2.6 square kilometers, there are more than 150 geysers, not to mention hot springs and other thermal features as well. It is something of a task to try and choose just 10 of these thermal wonders, but that is what I have decided to try and do today. You may find it useful to watch this podcast on YouTube as opposed to listen to it on Spotify or Google Podcasts. Just go to YouTube, search for Yellowstone Podcast. I think the first one that comes up is the Yellowstone TV series, and then the next series is All Ours. Click on there. If you can't watch on YouTube at the moment, consider bringing up a map, which you'll find at our site, ysmotel.com/Old Faithful Map. That's ysmotel.com/Old Faithful Map. And while you're at our motel site, consider booking one of our very reasonable priced and well-appointed motel rooms, but that's another story. Okay, so let me try and choose my top 10. And my first choice is actually two thermal features. And I'm on our map at the moment at ysmotel.com/Old Faithful Map. And my first two, which I'm including as one because they're right next to each other, are two really cool hot springs or pools called Chromatic Pool and Beauty Pool. I've selected these because they are really colorful, they really stand out amongst the other thermal features, and on YouTube I'm showing you a video that you can find in our YouTube channel. This one is the trail from Grotto Geyser to Old Faithful. There's two ways you can get from Grotto Geyser to Old Faithful. That is Chromatic Pool, and I'm sorry that's come up there. You can just see all of our virtual Yellowstone tours at that site. But there you can see Chromatic Pool. It's such a splendid array of colors standing out against the stark relief of the center that you see with the beautiful green trees and the blue sky in the background. And then coming up next, we're coming to Beauty Pool. And off in the background there, you can see where Grand Geyser is. That's not Grand erupting. It looks like either vent or turbine, but I will get to that a little later. So here is Beauty Pool, and we have two thermal features now for the price of one. The next one that I want to consider is going to be Blue Star Spring. And let me show you where Blue Star Spring is. I'm going to the map that's at our motel site, ysmotel.com/Old Faithful Map. And if we look at the Old Faithful area, we can see where Old Faithful Geyser is, we can see where the inn is, we can see where the visitor center is. And if you stand with your back to Old Faithful Lodge, walk straight, don't take that trail to the right, but carry on straight, and you'll come across a number of pretty cool thermal features, one of which is Blue Star Spring. And because there's not an awful lot on this trail, people tend to overlook Blue Star. And if you're looking at this on YouTube, you can see just how stunning it is. You've got Blue Star Spring in the foreground. It's this really magnificent blue color. In the background, that's the Firehole River. Look at the bacteria mats coming down off the Firehole River, and it makes a really spectacular sight. The next one that I'd like to show you is Solitary Geyser. Now, solitary geyser is a little off the beaten track, but please bear with me for this one. If you have seen various of our other virtual Yellowstone tours or our podcasts, you'll notice that there is, or you'll know that there is an observation point which you can climb up to, and you get a wonderful view of Old Faithful Geyser from 160 feet above it. Now, you can carry on with the loop, though, and you can get to solitary geyser. And solitary geyser, as the name suggests, is a geyser that is standing all by itself. It's up in the hills, and in this video that I'm showing you at the moment, I'm coming out of the forest, having walked down a little bit and then up and down through the forest from the Old Faithful observation point. I'm getting to solitary geyser. We know that there's a thermal area there. We can see the steam coming off. We can see the sinter all over the ground. And as we approach, we see this spectacular pool, just blue, blue, blue colors, as you'll see in a minute. And there's a geyser in there as well. And solitary geyser does erupt every now and again. I've never seen a major eruption, but if you look for this video on YouTube, I do catch a couple of smaller eruptions. You can see that the video is called Hike the Old Faithful Observation Point and Solitary Geyser Loop Trail. And if you do have enough time, there you can see a few bubbles. I do recommend that you consider doing that as well. I'm going back now to our map at the motel site, ysmotel.com/Old Faithful map. And what I'd like to show you is a really unusual geyser called spasmodic geyser. So if you take the trail, once again, from Old Faithful Lodge, this time cross over the river, and then you'll see there's two branches or two loops that you can take. It doesn't matter which one you take because you'll come out at the same point. And just before you get to the area where Grand Geyser is, on the right-hand side, you'll see another little boardwalk going off the main boardwalk, and that'll take you to Spasmodic Geyser. Now, you can see Spasmodic Geyser on various of our virtual Yellowstone tours. Here I'm just leaving Grand Geyser. You can see Old Faithful there in the background. What's cool about Spasmodic is that it's got two craters, and you can have eruptions from either crater up to about 15 feet or 4.6 meters high. Just look at that. There's little eruptions taking place all over the place, and you don't know quite what you're going to see when you get there. It also has 20 vents, so the water can erupt anywhere from a few inches to 10 feet, say 3 meters from the 20 or so vents. The eruptions are irregular, but most of them are in about the 1 to 3 hour range. And it's just so cool to stand there and watch it. And what you might like to do is, if you're going to go watch Grand Geyser erupt, allow enough time to stop off at Spasmodic Geyser on the way there as well. I'm now going back to Google Maps, and I'd like to show you right at the very north side of the Upper Geyser Basin, we can see Morning Glory Pool. Morning Glory Pool is just the most spectacular sight. Unfortunately, it's so spectacular because it's dying, and I'm not going to go into that in any detail at all here. I do mention it in various of our other virtual Yellowstone tours, and this sign, the sign that we just saw on the right there, tells you why it is dying. But look at those colors. Isn't that just amazing? And on a beautiful day like this, a bluebird star day with the sun out, the colors are just amazing, and you can get some really, really stunning pictures and videos as I did over here. I'm now just going to switch to another window, and the next geyser that, the next of my top 10 is Castle Geyser. Castle Geyser is one of the 5 geysers in the Upper Geyser Basin that has its eruption times predicted. So you've got Old Faithful, of course, Castle, Daisy, Riverside, and Grand. And if you're looking at the map, you can see that Castle Geyser is very close to Old Faithful. So if you walk down on the boardwalk that I'm showing you, so it's the extreme left or the west boardwalk, the first major feature that you're going to come to is Castle Geyser, and you can't miss Castle because, as you can see in the video now, it's called Castle for a reason. It's just this huge geyser, and if you look at the video that I'm showing you, do you see the rainbow to the right? So many of these geysers have rainbows. Now, Castle erupts about every 10 to 20 hours. It has about 20 minutes of hot water, followed by a noisy steam phase of about 30 to 40 minutes. And as you can see, the rainbow has occurred during the steam phase, and I'm just showing that to you because that's where the rainbow occurred. I'm now showing you just part of the eruption from the side of Castle Geyser. Castle is well worth watching, and if memory serves me correctly, it has about a 45-minute window on either side. What do I mean by 45-minute window? Well, geyser eruption times are predicted. I use a site called geysertimes.org. I'm showing it to you at the moment. Now, if we have a look, we'll see Castle Geyser is actually predicted to 2 hours either side. Now, this isn't normal. I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail, but the reason for this is that you'll probably find that the last Castle eruption was a very minor eruption. And when you've had a minor eruption, which just lasts for a short period of time, you cannot predict the next eruption as accurately as you could after a major eruption. But if memory serves me correctly, it's approximately 45 minutes either side, so you'll sit and wait for it for an hour and a half, but there are worse places to sit and wait. Now, my next of my top 10 is actually a little unusual. It's not one perhaps that you would expect, because it's actually a building. It's Old Faithful Inn. We can see where Old Faithful Geyser is, and Old Faithful Inn, funnily enough, it doesn't actually have the main part of Old Faithful Inn facing towards Old Faithful Geyser. That is another story, but it is one of the most beautiful buildings in the entire national park system. Just look at that picture that I'm showing you at the moment. Unfortunately, when I started doing this video and podcast series about Yellowstone, the inn was closed because of COVID, and it's closed at the moment, but it's constructed of wood, and it's just the most delightful, wonderful building, and you have to visit it when you do go to Old Faithful. And that is assuming, of course, that it opens again. You can see the pictures that I'm showing you online at the moment. There's also normal years, a place where you can go eat. It's right at the back over here, and they have this wonderful breakfast buffet. They have a dinner buffet. The prices are actually pretty reasonable, and it's really cool to go sit there, wait for Old Faithful to erupt, have something to eat. Counting down, we are now at number 3 on my list, and number 3 is Riverside Geyser. Riverside Geyser is another geyser that is pretty easy to predict. And I'm just zooming in a bit so we can see it, but it doesn't want to show it to me on that map. I'm now going to the motel site map, and we can see that Riverside Geyser is at the north end of the Upper Geyser Basin. Just before you get to Morning Glory, there's a little loop that comes off, and it's very close to the main trail, as you can see. And I'm showing you Riverside Geyser now. I mentioned that Riverside is very easy to predict because so many of these geysers that are relatively easy to predict are pretty isolated. They're not close to other major thermal features. And one of the beautiful things about Riverside Geyser is, as you can see, it's right next to the Firehole River. Its eruptions last approximately 20 minutes. They get up to about 75 feet. The interval between eruptions, probably about 5.5 to 6.5 hours. And generally speaking, you're going to wait about 20 to 25 minutes on either side. So in other words, the eruption will be predicted in the middle, and then it will occur either 20 to 25 minutes on either side, although Riverside is a bimodal geyser. Once again, I don't have time to go into that here, but basically it'll either erupt the 20 minutes before or the 25 minutes after. It's unlikely to erupt in the middle. If we go back to the map, number 2 on my list is Old Faithful. Now, Old Faithful is just Old Faithful. Everybody knows Old Faithful. At the moment, it's erupting about every 93 minutes or so. It's not the tallest geyser, it doesn't have the highest geyser, it doesn't have the shortest interruption period, but it's a very easy geyser to predict. I prefer the geysertimes.org's prediction times as opposed to the National Park Service. I find that they are more accurate. If we have a look, I'm sorry, that didn't come up. If we have a look at geysertimes.org, they were predicting Old Faithful, it looks like, to 13 minutes, and the National Park Service predicts it to 10 minutes either side. And for my money, geysertimes.org is more reliable and more accurate than the National Park Service. Could I please have a roll of drums now? I'm going to get to my number 1 and my top 10 list of my favorite experiences and sites at the Upper Geyser Basin, and that is Grand Geyser. And the name says it all. Grand is just the most grand geyser that you are going to see. It is the highest predictable geyser in the world. So it's the highest geyser where they can actually predict the eruption times. Generally speaking, the window on either side is going to be about 1 to 1.5 hours on either side, depending on various factors that I'm not going to go into. Historically, Grand erupts about every 4 to 8 hours, but in 2018, it became more reliable. The pattern settled down to about every 6 to 7 hours or so. What is wonderful about Grand? Well, there's so much that is wonderful about Grand, but what I really enjoy about Grand, number 1, is that it gives an encore performance. What do I mean by that? It'll stop erupting, and people start groaning and moaning. And by the way, you should hear the cheers when Grand Geyser starts erupting initially. And then it'll come back for an encore, and it'll often come back for 3 or 4 encores. Just look at that geyser erupting on YouTube. But then, what is also cool about Grand Geyser is that you have 2 other geysers, you can see them, Vent Geyser and Turbine Geyser. So at some stages, you have Vent and Turbine and Grand all going off at the same time. Now, if you're not a keen geyser watcher as I am, you may not find that so stunning or so amazing, but it's like watching a ballet or a symphony. And look at that little rainbow there on the side, by the way. And once Grand has finished its eruptions, you'll find that Vent and Turbine can carry on for an indefinite period. And here I'm just showing you the crowds watching Grand erupt, not obviously anywhere near as many people as you can see at Old Faithful, and that's Old Faithful in the background there. Guys, that is my top 10 list. I'd be interested in hearing what your top 10 list is of the most wonderful sights to see at the Upper Geyser Basin. And as I do that, the internet starts slowing down again for whatever reason. Please remember, if you're looking for a motel in the Yellowstone area, we operate Yellowstone Motel, which you can see at YS Motel, short for Yellowstone, ysmotel.com. If you are looking for a Yellowstone tour, we operate more Yellowstone tours literally than anyone in the world. You can see those at yellowstonetours.net. That's yellowstonetours.net. We also offer day hikes, which you can see at yellowstonedayhikes.com. That's yellowstonedayhikes.com. The hikes vary in length from about 2 hours to a full day. You can see all of these podcasts on YouTube, or if you don't want to search on YouTube, just go to yellowstonepodcasts.com. That's yellowstonepodcast.com. And all of our virtual Yellowstone tours, all these videos that I'm showing you, can be found both on YouTube as well as at virtualyellowstonetours.com. That's virtualyellowstonetours.com. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Yellowstone podcast, and I'll catch you next time.